Hello and welcome to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. This is Colleen Beamish from Humor Bean Cards, and today I will be creating a card and gift tag using some new products from Spellbinders. So here I have some press plates. One says Joy to the World, Happy Holidays, and then I have the Copperplate gift tag set also. In addition to that, I have a couple embossing folders here. This is the Playful Poinsettia, and then I have this an ornament one that I will not be using in today's video, but could definitely work with the techniques we'll be doing today. And then lastly, some gold pigment ink from Honeybee Stamps. So let's get into it. I'll be starting by working on my background. So I have the embossing folder here, and I'm checking to see which side is the raised side, so which side's going to pop up the flowers versus indent the flowers. And so I have the side that will indent the flowers, so the background negative space is raised. And I'm using some pink ink here, and I'm just pouncing that all over as if it were a stamp. I found that pouncing it was better than rubbing the ink on. I've seen people use a brayer, but for me, this was the best technique. And then I will put my cardstock into the embossing folder and run that through my die cutting machine. What this will do is emboss the flowers, but on all of the areas where that ink is, it will leave the paper pink. So it looks like it's pink paper, except that the flowers are still white and embossed. It creates a really beautiful contrast. And here's the result of that impression, and that is just absolutely stunning. So to clean off the embossing folder, it's really easy. I just use some rubbing alcohol and a microfiber cloth, and that will take the ink right off. You won't have any ink the next time you go to use the embossing folder. So now I want to add some color to the flowers. So I have a very small blending brush here and some red dye ink, and then I'm just doing kind of pushing motions with that blending brush. Each time I pick up ink, I am dabbing off the excess because this red ink can be very pigmented and have a lot. It's a very juicy ink pad, so I'm splotching it off on a piece of scrap paper there. And then I go all the way around this main flower, doing that same motion, pushing from the center of the petal outwards. You can see that I'm rotating the paper so that I'm always pushing the brush in the same direction. I wanted the tips of the flowers to remain white, and I wanted some variety in the color. I didn't want every single petal to look exactly the same. So I'll go throughout this panel, and all of the petals that I want to be red, I will be doing the same motion. I'll also be adding red ink to the clusters of berries throughout the design. I'm not being too precise, I just want to add a little bit of color. Throughout this process, I never wanted the entire panel to be colored. I really want there to be contrast between the lights and the darks, and the color to be kind of like implied, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want it to be all over. So you'll see with the green here where I'm going in on the leaves, it's kind of that same idea where I'm just putting a little bit of green so you know that the leaves are green, but it's not super in your face green. Again, with this color, I'm still patting off the excess ink on my scrap paper. This would be even easier with a smaller blending brush, and I'm only thinking of that now, watching it back, that I definitely could have gotten out my Pinkfresh Studio 1/2-inch blending brushes. I think the size of the brush will probably affect how much ink you're putting down and how it's like hitting the raised areas of the piece. So I'm happy with how this turned out, but you could definitely experiment with different brush sizes. So I colored all my leaves with green, and now I have that gold pigment ink, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit to the centers of the flowers, which are raised kind of clusters. Again, this part really would have been better with a smaller brush. So if I did this again, I would probably go in with a smaller brush for these centers, just so you could cover more surface area than with the larger brush, which kind of gets gold maybe on areas that you don't want it. I should mention that all of the products I use in today's video will be linked down in the description below, so be sure to check that out. So this is pretty much all of the coloring. I do go and add a tiny bit of gold to those clusters of berries as well, because I felt like it needed some more gold throughout the image rather than just on the centers of the flowers. So that's just a finishing touch. And I love how this background turned out. I want to make like 10 more of them, which would be really easy to do, especially experimenting with different colors. You could do a red background or a green background, and it could have a really cool effect. So moving on to my sentiment, I have my BetterPress system here, as well as the Joy to the World press plate and a cotton card panel which comes with the BetterPress system. I will take my card panel and I will tape that to the platen, which is the plastic top piece that has the magnets on the corners. This will help me to line up the sentiment to be in the middle of this card panel. So I'll line that up on the chase here, and it doesn't need to be perfect because I will be die cutting this out, but I did want it to be near the center of the card panel just so that I had some wiggle room to line up my die. Now I'm going in with that pigment ink. I haven't seen pigment ink used with the BetterPress before. Typically I see the dye ink, and there is specific ink that you get one black ink cube that comes with the BetterPress system, but they also make other colors that are specifically designed for Letterpress. But like I said, I'm using the Honeybee Stamps gold pigment ink here, and I'm just kind of pouncing that all over the press plate and kind of rubbing it back and forth, trying to make sure all of the raised areas have plenty of ink. Now I'll put my platen on top of the chase and I will run it through my die cutting machine. And then when I remove the platen, you will see my card has this beautiful impression with the gold ink. It's just so perfect for a Christmas card. So I went ahead and die cut that out using a notched corner die from Pinkfresh Studio. And now I'm just adding some pink ink around the edges using a blending brush. This is the same ink that we used in the embossing folder, so it will match my background. So I'm just doing some light ink blending just so that it's not such a stark white compared to the background. Now I have a card base, it's the upper left piece there, and that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 in heavyweight cardstock, and I'm just going to glue my card front to this card base. So I put it into the corner of my score buddy here just so I can line it up. I'm using some Barely Arts liquid glue in order to get that placed down, and that will help with adhering the textured piece to the smoother piece. I just find that liquid glue works better for that. And then I have some foam tape on the back of my sentiment, and I'm just popping that up right in the middle of my card. And that nearly completes this card. I will just go ahead and add some gold embellishments from Pinkfresh Studio, and you can see here how that turned out, and I'm so happy with it. But I'm not done yet because I wanted to make a matching gift tag. So the Copperplate gift tag set has this shaped die, so I went ahead and cut that out of white cardstock. And then it has a couple mini teeny tiny press plates, one that says to, one that says from, and then a little sprig of holly. And then it also has a die to cut out the holly. So I am taping my die cut here to my platen right in the center. This one, it matters a little bit more how I line it up. So I put it right in the center of that grid. And now I'm figuring out where I want the to and from to be on my tag. So I make sure to kind of figure out the spacing of the different quadrants and how I want it to be laid out. So it took me a little bit of time, but eventually I figured out that 1, it doesn't need to be perfect, but 2, the grid is super helpful. So again, I'm using that gold pigment ink and putting that all over the 3 press plates I have there. The excess ink on the chase will not transfer over, so you don't need to worry about that if it gets onto the chase behind your press plates. So once that's run through my die cutting machine, I can take the platen off and you will see I have a perfect, well, I should say nearly perfect impression. There is a little bit of ink at the very top of my die cut there, but that is a super easy fix. I will just take a sand eraser and go right over that. The sand eraser basically just kind of scrapes off the very top layer of the paper. And on this cotton paper, you really can't tell a difference. Like it doesn't scrape into the paper or anything. So it just takes that ink off really easily. Now I wanted to zhuzh up this tag a little bit. So I did go in with that same pink ink and went around the edges just like I did for the focal point of the card. So this is only one side of the gift tag though. I'm going to decorate the other side as well. So rather than just using the back of this tag, which is kind of scraped up from going through my die cutting machine, I'm actually going to die cut another white tag to work on. So I repeated the process of adding pink around the edges, and then I'm going to put this into my embossing folder again. I'm putting it so that the flowers will be indented on the front of this tag. Basically, this is just going to be a background because I'm going to die cut out one of the flowers and adhere it over top, and I just didn't want it to be on a plain white tag. So here you can see that the flower is indented rather than popping up like it was on our card. So I'm going to die cut out the flower. This comes with the embossing folder. Now, it's important that you die cut first and emboss second, otherwise the embossing will be pressed down flat. So once I die cut this, I will get out my embossing folder again, and then the flower just kind of lines right up in the embossing folder. So I'll run that through the die cutting machine. I had no trouble with it like moving or anything, so it was very easy. And then you'll see I have one beautiful poinsettia flower here. So I'm going to do the same process that I did on the card of adding color to this. So I'm going to kind of skip over the process because you saw it on the card front, but I did the same exact thing with the red ink going from the center outwards. Next, I decided that I wanted to add some green to the background of the tag as well. So wherever those impressed leaves are, I'm kind of going over that with a very light hand with the green ink. There's only, I think there's 3 or 4 leaves, and it doesn't matter if I go over the petals. In this instance here, you'll see that I'm really not even caring that there's a petal there because the flower that we just die cut out will be right over top. So I just want to get some green in the general area of the leaves, and you'll see I even end up putting some green over one of the petals to pretend it was a leaf just because I felt like that bottom left corner needed a little bit of green ink. So once I'm happy with how the green ink blending looks, I'm ready to add my flower. So I'm just putting some foam tape on the back of the flower, and that will pop it up right on the center of the gift tag. Now it doesn't line up with the impressed flower image because it's the basically reverse, like mirror image, since one is popped up and one is impressed. But I like how it kind of looks like another layered flower behind it, or like more layers to this one flower. I'm going around and kind of zhuzhing up the petals a little bit so they stand up and it looks very 3D. And that completes that side of the tag. So now I just need to glue the two together. So again, I'm using the Barely Arts liquid glue, and I'll just put that all over the back and then glue the two sides together. So now on one side we have this beautiful poinsettia, and on the other we have a gift tag that says to from, and you can fill out your recipient's name there. So I just added some pink ribbon from my stash to complete this gift tag, and you can see it here with the card and how perfectly they coordinate. I'm so happy with how this card and gift tag turned out. Like I said, everything I used in today's video is linked down in the description below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel because there's always more crafty inspiration here all the time. So I hope to see you again soon, and thanks so much for watching. Bye.